but this one's a little bit different, I would say, because typically, like what we're trying to do with this PodCasket is just tell the stories of the legends in death care. You're one of those, but this, I would say, is kind of a two-part podcast, really, where I want to hear your story, but also with your position as president of the board for the ICCFA, would love to get your, thoughts there as an ambassador for the ICCFA as well. So I was given a bit of a bio here. So I'm going to start with that. So we kind of cover some bases, and then we just want to hear your story. And we just want to go back to the beginning of where it all started for Bob Gordon. So Bob Gordon Jr. is a California native and 1988 business administration marketing graduate from San Diego State University. He's been in the funeral service and cemetery industry since 1980. Bob's a fourth generation funeral industry leader, began his career in funeral service at the age of 15 at his grandfather's firm, Oakdale Mortuary and Memorial Park in Glendora, California. He worked in every position at the family cemetery and funeral home, eventually rising to the level of vice president. He remained in this role until he left the family business following 14 years of service. Bob's a licensed funeral director and cemetery broker prior to accepting the position of president and CEO for the Cypress Lawn Cemetery Association. Bob held various leadership positions at SCI, including sales director over one of the highest and most consistent performing markets in North America. Bob has also enjoyed the privilege of leading sales and operations teams for Carriage Services and the El Camino Group in San Diego. His motto remains, ensure others succeed. Since joining Cypress Lawn as CEO in 2017, Bob has ushered in an era of unprecedented growth, including acquiring Olivet's acreage and facilities, growing and diversifying the staff, expanding service offerings to families, and Bob has doubled annual revenues for his organization. Bob's been married to his wife, Patty, for 20 years. They live in Danville with their three children, Jack, Gracie, and Mason. Bob's older children are Kennedy Gordon and Zachary Robert Gordon. Zachary works as a sales leader for SCI. So there's a lot to unpack there, man. So, I mean, you've heard Lisa Bowie's episode here. This is us listening to you, not me. So where did this all start with Bob? I'd love just to get the color on all this. Like, if you wouldn't mind telling us about your young years growing up.
Well, these days, I think I'm the exception to the rule. It used to be all family businesses, but now we're hiring kids out of college and that came from all sorts of different places. I was raised on a 100-acre cemetery. When my dad had to go out of town, the mechanic or one of the interment crew would take me home, and I'd spend the night at their house. And I was picked up by the hearse or a dump truck sometimes from school before I was, driving, and worked at the cemetery. As far back as probably when I was 10 years old, I was still, getting paid, by under the table a little bit before, because I was so young. I think I was sweeping headstones for a dime a row back then.
Wow.
So that's where it started, and we can keep going from there.
What did that entail? Like working at the cemetery as a kid? You're sweeping headstones, but what about were you doing like digging as well?
Yeah, well, there was a number of directions that we went. One was the easiest thing where I couldn't get in a lot of trouble was putting me on a tractor out in the field to keep the weeds down. So you didn't want any plants growing or anything that in the undeveloped land. So I would come home from school and get on a tractor and have one of those diffs that tills under the weeds, and do that in the afternoon. I can still hear a little bit, but I'm sure my hearing was affected by that program. Then put you on a lawnmower and mow the lawns. I remember we had a red Toro, and I remember that a guy told me, he said, make sure you're carrying some red paint, and that was in case I were to hit one of the headstones. I could spray the area that got scraped off. So made all the mistakes that anyone could make as an employee of the cemetery. And then the big thing was to be on the interment crew and be able to run the backhoe. Although Oftentimes, as a family member, I often got stuck digging the graves by hand, the ones that had to be done by hand. So back then I was pretty strong. But sometimes they'd say, oh, we'll just give you a wheelbarrow and a shovel and go out and find that grave and learned how to do all of that and did a lot of that stuff by hand. From there, just went eventually went into the office, got a chance to put on a suit and tie, and I either washed cars or I worked services every other day. Then began picking up death certificates, occasionally doing first calls, and through college, I started making funeral arrangements at the time of need. We were a universal counselor program, so not only did you do at-need arrangements, but you also followed up with the family, went out after the service to the family's home and did some aftercare work with the family, sold pre-need during that time, and I stuck my last 2 years of college. I went away to school, but I made all the money to pay for my college by delivering deeds to cemetery property and then selling funeral plans, on an insurance product for the old Forethought group.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I just kept doing that. When I got out of college, I thought, hey, I really don't want to go back to the cemetery business. I want to try and do something else. And I sold copiers and did a few other things, started my own little kind of construction business. But in the end, my dad said, hey, we need you to come back for just a couple of years. And when you're done, you can go to do whatever you want. And, they say you get into the cemetery business, but then it gets into you. And I just kind of got addicted to helping families and being part of something that's like so purpose-driven, 7 days a week. And had an opportunity to do pretty much every job across the board. And as a family businesses, you work 7 days a week, and you never stop. And every meal you're talking about the business. And so it was a great training ground for me.
So it says it was your grandfather's business. Did your dad take it over?
My dad and my grandfather worked together, and that was a great learning for me to deal with my grandfather and my dad as they communicated with each other. It would be like, go tell your grandfather this, go tell your dad that. I learned about politics and how to make things work, and it was great training. So at a certain point, my granddad said he was going to sell to one of the consolidators, and so I told him I wanted to make a move and do something on my own. I asked him, hey, could you buy me a funeral home? I go, let's branch out. Let me do something else. He wasn't up for that. And so I said, okay, here's my notice. I was hoping that I'd given him 2 months notice, thinking he would just give me a check. He did not. So I had to keep working, but he said, if you need to go do an interview, go do an interview. And ended up interviewing for a cemetery that was owned by the Truesdale Enterprises or El Camino Group in Waikiki area or Hawaii area. And they had a cemetery in San Diego and ended up getting the position there. So I was super young and took over a big team. All I had going for me is, I knew a lot about the business, and I'd seen some legends in the industry, some mentors that I really looked up to, and I decided I would just act like them and make it work. And so the company trusted me, and I did what I saw some of my mentors doing and was able to create loyalties within the team, recruit, train, motivate, and drive sales. And it was a great experience. I was in my late 20s.
So the El Camino Truesdale group, is this, you mentioned Waikiki, San Diego, is this now part of North Star, or what happened to that group? I don't know that I've ever heard of them.
Yeah, the Truesdale Enterprises was owned by Paul Truesdale, who owned the International Marketplace in Hawaii and and was mainly a developer, but had a cemetery in San Diego and in Hawaii. And he, while I was there, they sold to Stewart, which was later sold to SCI. So now those are SCI.
So those are SCI properties. Okay. All right. I was wondering, just because thinking California and Hawaii, it made me think maybe it was North Star. But okay, so that and so is that what got you then into SCI? Was through that acquisition?
During I helped with the acquisition for Stewart, and once we were through the acquisition and working things out, things weren't working with me with the existing group. So I said I started interviewing and got called for a lunch with SCI, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't really want to work for SCI. But when I got the job offer, I go, okay, I'll do it for like 6 months and learn everything that they can teach me, and then I'll find something else. And it was so I took over a cemetery in San Diego called Glen Abbey. It's in Bonita, which was right up my alley. Same ethnic groups, a lot of pre-need, and just worked my way up there. Ended up being the sales director of San Diego. Eventually got San Diego and Orange County in California, and more teams. And one of the things I always was taught by my mentors was the biggest army wins. So I just kept recruiting and hiring and showing people how to make money that they might have. Typically, they were on an hourly wage somewhere, and I could show them how they could make 3, 4, 5 times more money selling cemetery property and funeral plans.
And when because you're talking about being with cemeteries but selling pre-need, so you're selling a full service like funeral pre-need plan as well. Yeah. You're not just selling burial. Okay.
Cremation, basically when we walk into a family's home, we need to ask them what they, what it means to them to be celebrating life and creating some sort of funeral, and whatever it is that they want, we write it out and fund it, and then they make payments on it, and eventually it's all paid off and nobody has to worry about it.
What did it look like then in California versus now? Like the cremation rates, maybe just like how successful pre-need was or aggressive it was back then. What would you say is different today versus then?
When I started, we all, door knocking was a big thing. We all door knocked. We'd knock on someone's door and introduce ourselves and tell them we're from the cemetery and we'd like to give them some information. May I come in? And
wow.
And that was normal. Or on the family service side, we would help a family making the at-need arrangements, and then we would, go to their house, maybe bring some coffee or some donuts or whatever, and be part of the after-service reception at their home, make friends with everyone, and then explain a vital record guide or how planning works, and help everybody get registered. Even if they don't pre-fund it, they can still pre-plan and get people protected. Our job is just to inform and educate people as to how they can protect their families. And so we did a lot of that. And I don't think nowadays people don't go to people's homes at all, certainly after COVID. So very rarely does our team ever leave the office. So it's a whole different thing. We probably do 40% of our contracts at need or pre-need remotely. So it's neat. It's a neat change, but I still miss the old days.
When you were knocking doors, would you like try to profile a house and decide how like old the person was? You know what I mean? Was there like any things you'd look for to say like this? This person might be the right age to buy a pre-need policy.
There was an old joke, like there'd be like the cement ducks in the planters, or things like that. Or I had a mentor who he would look for the signs that said no soliciting. If this sign says no soliciting. He'd say, oh, well, that doesn't mean me. I'm from the cemetery right down the street. Wanted to come in and just give you a little information on what we're doing over here. And so I learned that it was it was amazing that families would just invite us into their homes to get information. It's like a secret to a lot of families because it's not on the radar to think about funerals or cemetery until something happens. And when we approach someone, even today, once you have a little bit of a conversation and you've created some trust between you, where they're listening to what you're doing, what you're saying, and what you do, eventually they go, well, how much does it cost, and how does it work, and why do other people pre-plan? And it's just it's the same. That part is the same. It's just how we get to that point.
Yeah, when you say you can, there's pre-planning and pre-funding. Like, what would you do if they wanted to plan but not fund? Does that mean pre-planning it still has some sort of payment, or is it like, will you just store their final wishes somewhere?
Yeah, we just store their final wishes. Here at Cypress Lawn, we have a sales quote. So we collect a sales quote, which will also collect some vital statistics information. We keep it. It shows what they had selected at the time. There's no price guarantee if they don't pre-fund, but at least when the family walks in, 15 years from now, they can say, hey, well, Dad, kind of had his eye on this casket and liked a service and actually wrote down that he'd like for you 3 people to be the pallbearers and, some cool stuff that makes people relax. Right? If they come walk in and they go, oh, Dad was at least here and we're doing kind of what he wanted, perfect. Because there's all that pressure of, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what my mom or dad would want? So pre-planning, whether you pre-fund or not, is still a good steward of your family's funeral services.
Yeah, operationally, do you check when a family comes in whether or not you have anything in the system stored already, or is it something they normally tell you?
Well, I have worked for cemeteries that had to ask the family to bring their paperwork in, but at any location, they're going to do a research once they get the first call, and we'll check and see, hey, what does Bob Gordon have, or how many Bob Gordons do we have in the system? Let's verify the address, and then figure out if any of these contracts apply, or even plans or vital statistics if we had just a record on file.
Okay. So you mentioned you learned the bigger Army wins. You've had a ton of success in sales across these organizations, and where you are today, obviously with your accomplishment of doubling the company. Aside from just like, is that it for you? Is it like just the bigger Army wins, or what else is it that you'd say like has driven your sales success?
I think that, if you can have a team that really believes that they're helping people, another saying I often say is that missionaries are better than mercenaries in the cemetery and funeral business. You can hire someone who's had all the Tommy Hopkins training and been through all of that and maybe can sell a lot of cars, and they will fail in our industry. But you find, my oldest pre-need salesperson is 93 years old.
Whoa.
Just retired a month ago. She came in every day to work. She wrote at least 1 or 2 contracts a week. And just a sweet little old lady that believed in what she was doing and helping people. And so, that's the proof of what we do. If you believe in what you do, then you can be successful here. But you have to have a heart for it. And so some of my success has been just finding those people that have a heart for helping others and then pointing them in the right direction. Because, if your heart is aligned with your actions, you can do anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I imagine you've got excellent training. You've set up though as well for all these folks internally.
Yeah, I was talking with one of our sales leaders just before this call, and we were I was just talking about about leadership and management, and how much I love my job, and how I want everyone that's working for me to really love what they do. Because if you love what you do, then you take care of it. And when I was in high school working at the cemetery, I also started coaching Little League. And I said, I really like this. I like this idea of being the coach. And then when I went to San Diego State, we started a business fraternity, and I got to be the president of that. And I really like that. I really like the organizational piece of that, and showing people why they should be part of us. And so even when I was in sales, and I typically, probably a few people that will be listening to this podcast probably kicked my butt in sales, because I was probably number 2 or 3 or 4 all the time, but hardly ever number 1. But one thing that I did do is I learned what the process of taking someone who thinks this is the stupidest idea to do this, to a point where they go, wow, this is a great idea. I need to do this for my family, and thank you for showing me the way. And just getting that tone and the process down of how we talk to our families, whether it's at-need or pre-need, and then teaching that over and over again, and then just finding different channels, whether it's a dine and learn, or a lunch and learn situation, or it's online where we're doing some digital nurturing of our leads to get things going, and then handing it off to a planning advisor. We still have some of our salespeople are, right down at Costco down the street, talking to families in line.
Oh, wow.
Because they spark up a conversation. What do you do? This is what I do. And before you know it, they're over here taking a tour. One of the coolest things we're doing here at Cypress Lawn, that I've done tours my whole career, but I bought this big trolley. And so we do educational tours for planning. We do historical tours of the famous people in San Francisco. We also have vintners that are buried here, so we'll take people on a tour, serve them their wine, the dead vintner's wine and cheese and all of that, and take them around from step to step and talk about the history of that. We've got brewers that are here. We just did sports people in a tour. But the main thing, Curtis, is this: if we spend enough time with people and show them the cemetery, we make friends, then they're listening to us. And everybody that gets off that bus at the end goes, how much is a cremation? Or what are those spaces over there? Or can I have an appointment to get more information? It's like 100%. So that's really any way that we can create some connection with the community and people and show them who we are, that drives a lot of sales. So a lot of that is our success. And it's part of our story. We tell our story all the time about that we're not just a cemetery, we're part of the community. We're here to help families, and all of us are here to help families celebrate life, how to help people survive loss, heal from loss, and then remember those that they love.
That's awesome. And what's the most effective, because I'm just thinking, like, what would it take to get me or like my dad or whatever, like on a tour, right? It's like, what's the most effective way to try to get people to your facility for these tours?
Well, it comes in a lot of directions. If you belong to a group, an organization, oftentimes I would make a donation to your group or organization to put people on the bus. It's a fundraiser opportunity. So let's say your kid's part of Boy Scouts or something like that. We would say, hey, anyone that comes from Boy Scouts that runs the over 18 that runs through the tours, we'll donate $25 or something to the Boy Scouts. So it's a great way to connect with people. Could be a veterans group, could be however we might reach out to you. Right now on Facebook, we collect people that sign up for our tours all the time. They'll see the tour, they'll go, oh, that's a neat idea. It's an opportunity for a date, or a way to get out of the house. And for the most, we have started charging from time to time. We're testing charging for the tours. People like to pay for tours. But it really doesn't matter to me. I just want to have the people on the bus out driving through the cemetery.
Yeah. How often are you running these tours?
There's 3 or 4 a week right
now.
Wow. And sometimes daily. So there could be we might have 3 or 4 in a day on a weekend day. And we have two trolleys and then some antique vehicles that we use for this. So it's a big deal. And some walking tours. We're coming up on Halloween, so I'm sure that we're going to have our spooky night tour. That's actually one of the biggest. Everyone wants to come and walk around the cemetery at night in the dark. It's fun.
Oh, that's so cool. Do you have dedicated employees that are just like community involvement, like getting out? Because it seems like you'd have to be like your scale.
When I came to Cypress Lawn, I created made it into an arboretum. There's a few steps you can do to convert to an arboretum. Most cemeteries have trees anyway, so it's not that difficult, but you have to go through the process. But I wanted to do it from a sales standpoint, just as a part of our story, that we're not just a cemetery, we're actually an arboretum. And frankly, we take care of our stuff. And our trees are one of our assets, so we really want to take care of them. So we have an arborist that works for us, and he does tours all the time. And then we have a nonprofit foundation that does a lot of marketing activities for us, but a lot of what she does is tours. She does a lot of cool stuff.
No, that's awesome. So let's back up a little bit. How did you get to, what brought you to Cypress Lawn?
Got it. So remember when I said that I was just going to work for SCI for like a couple months and see what they learned, what they did, and then go from there? I ended up working for SCI, did a few years at Carriage Services, and then back to SCI. So about 23 years total, working as a sales leader for both those big companies. And an amazing experience. One of the bigger companies have processes that are tight, and learning to work within that environment is a skill set that not everybody has. If you work for a little funeral home in the Midwest, everybody does things differently. You might have four employees, and they all do it differently. And so learning how processes work, and how to have a consistent delivery service or service delivery to your customer is a great skill set. And I was down in at SCI as a sales director for San Diego and Orange County. Not a bad place. I'm a surfer, so I got to live by the beach and sell cemetery property and have big teams, and it was just an amazing time. But I was getting a little bit bored in that I think when I worked for my family, I was an operations person. I was more operations than sales oriented. And then when I made the jump out of the family business, I realized that I had to find a sales path, a true sales path, feed my family and do things. And so I did all of that. But when the then president of Cypress Lawn reached out to me and said, "Hey, Bob, I'm thinking about retiring, and you might be a candidate." At first, I was like, "Why would I want to work for just one cemetery? I've got like 8 cemeteries and 12 funeral homes and all of this." And it took a while to come to grips with the fact that I really wanted to be focus on the operations and sales side. And the more I interviewed with the board of directors here, I saw that I could use all the skills that I learned, everything that I picked up from all of my mentors, all the experiences, and then every single day as I sit in this office, I get to make the right decision for the families, for the cemetery, for my employees every single day. Those are the 3 masters that I serve, And, I'm 60 years old this year. So if I can spend the next 10 years of my life, making the right decision for those three masters every single day, and then leave it so much better than I found it, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Tell what's the, you said like had interview and everything with the board of directors. What does ownership look like with Cypress Lawn?
It's a public benefit corporation, nonprofit. So the cemetery is a nonprofit entity. Our for-profit entities would be our funeral homes, our sales company, and I think that's pretty much it. So the for-profit companies are owned by the nonprofit. And so our board of directors are a lot of, prestigious, long-term, multi-generational San Francisco folks that, their main interest is to preserve the brand and of Cypress Lawn and to take care of it. We do a lot of things like making sure that our trust funds are loaded up with. When I first got here, our care fund was right around 40 something million, and I said, "Hey, let's get it to 100. Let's get it to 100 million." That means if we were ever to stop selling stuff and delivering services, we would still have money to take care of the place. And I think it took us 4 or 5 years to get to 100 million. I think we're around 130 million in our care fund now.
Wow.
So it's that feels good, right? Because 100 years from now, if I'm here another 10 years, I can probably grow it to 200, 250, depending on the stock market. And then we've got, the place is going to be well cared for. So it's about stewardship. It's about leaving a legacy and doing the right thing.
That's amazing. Sorry, you're making me think of a million things here, but
I'm just following you, man. You tell me what to tell me where we're going.
I just want to keep hearing your story, but there's just you're sharing so many things that are so different. So what would be some advantage? I mean, obviously, I'm thinking of a few, but what would be some advantages of the organization being set up the way it is with the nonprofit? Like, how do you see that as a strength versus just like a family-owned or for-profit organization?
I think that the nonprofit template, basically here at Cypress Lawn, every dollar that I bring into the business goes back into the business. The board of directors, receive a fee, but other than that, there's no owners that are, getting a new house in Lake Tahoe or, getting a new yacht or something, that sort of thing. That's not what's going on here. And so the entire focus is figuring out how to make the company better, how to make the brand better, how to be more efficient so that the funds that we have in the future cover the management of this facility, how to expand our brand so that we can, be the strongest market leader in the area. So I think it does give us a competitive advantage. There are a lot of resources and training and that sort of thing that publicly traded companies have that we do not have. They have, if they choose to, they have unlimited resources. That's not the case here, but I think that when I think about a book that was written by one of our mentors that says the cemetery is forever, that if the cemetery is forever, then the template that we're using, the business is the way we're operating our business is really the best, because every bit of energy is going into protecting the cemetery and to making it better and to mowing the lawns properly, to setting up all the developments, not just to drive sales, but how to make it last forever. think that's probably the case. I don't want to, I've got a lot of friends in a lot of different things. And in fact, I'm going to go to dinner with a couple friends from bigger companies this evening. And I love that. I love what they do. I did it a good portion of my life. And it's just a different way of approaching things. But in the end, we're all doing one thing, which is serving families. If you're a leader, you're trying to make sure that you connect purpose and passion to all of your employees so that they are serving families. Because if your employees are engaged, then the customer is happy. If your employees are angry, then the customer is not happy. So it all is connecting in a secret sauce. So we're all doing a lot of the same things.
I love that. I mean, I feel like it keeps the purpose and the vision and everything just pure, right? It has to be one way. I love that.
And Chris, sometimes you hire someone and they just don't get it. And you have to either make them better or make them leave. They cannot be part of what we do because one person can mess everything up. So that's another thing that I've learned in my time is I'll do my best to help anyone succeed here. But if it gets to the point where it's just not the right thing, it's not that there's anything wrong with that candidate. It's just that it's not the right thing for them and they should do something else. And I'll do whatever I can to help them find another role. For us to have the right team is more important. And you can't be afraid to let somebody go.
Yeah. Yeah, it ends up being the best thing for them too, typically in those situations, right? What are some other things about Cypress Lawn that are just different, or maybe something that like surprises people? Like when you're talking about what's different about Cypress Lawn, what's kind of something fun to talk about? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot, obviously, you've shared already, I think is different and cool, but anything else come to mind?
I would say, spending a good portion of my career in sales and taking people on sales trips and, even weekend getaways or offering, do this and I'll give you a big screen TV, that kind of thing, and daily recognition, jumping in someone's car, taking it to the car wash, bringing it back all clean, those sort of things. We did that for sales, and everybody told me, oh, it's, the sales personality is really driven by recognition. But the truth is that all humans are driven by recognition. And so one thing that we do here at Cypress Lawn that I don't think anyone does is we take our entire grounds crew to Reno, to a hotel, casino, and give them a couple nights, food and drink included. I spend a lot of time with them out on the pool deck. And, the recognition, and our secretaries, admin type people also go, people that don't get a lot of recognition, but often are the front line. We send them as well. And it's a great experience. It's once a year. We do other things too, but that's a big deal. And I've never seen it anywhere else where we do all this stuff for the sales people, but we're not taking care of our operations folks. And I'll tell you, it's a big deal. I mean, you hand a relatively conservative expense gift card to a groundsman, you'll see tears come down their eyes.
Wow.
If I were to give that to a salesperson, they'd go, how much is it? Right?
Yeah.
It's just a different conversation. So, and that's another thing that we're real proud of, because of a lot of the things that we do, we have almost no turnover unless we want it to be turnover. Once a month, I meet with all of our employees down the hallway at our reception area, and I recognize everyone that's for either their anniversary with the company or their birthday. Everybody gets a $100 gift card for their birthday or their anniversary. We call them up, we take pictures, and then we break bread or have cake or sometimes tacos or whatever it is every single month. So every single month, I have an opportunity to say thank you for what you do for the families, to the grounds guy who gets off his mower and takes his hat off when the service passes him, to the embalmer that gets the the season's set up just right, exactly like their family wants. All the extra effort that goes out there, the sales crew as well. That is a important piece of what we do every single day. We're not just having sales kickoffs. We have everybody kick off every month.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's cool to hear. I don't know that I've heard others talk about really like a culture like that with funeral home or cemetery. It's really special.
You bring up culture, and I think that that is something that was actually an aha for me. Steering a big ship, I've always struggled with how to get behaviors and values driven down throughout the whole organization. And I think for about 5 years now, we've been doing something very similar to the Ritz-Carlton, where we have 30 different value-driven behaviors, like we value safety, for instance, at Cypress Lawn. And so if this week we're talking about we value safety, then every single team will start the beginning of their meeting, no more than 5 minutes, on what does that mean to you? Go around the room, tell you, in my case, we value safety is don't stand up on a chair and, change a light bulb. Or we don't go out the exit, the one exit that we have off of our property that we know there's lots of accidents. Don't go that way. That sort of thing. So everybody talks about it, and then we move on. Next week, every team has a weekly meeting. They talk for 5 minutes on that, and they go on about their business, about whatever the next thing is, like dressing professionally, or what we do matters, or slow down and tell the family why you're doing things, whatever the behavior is. So we've built all those things out, and it really has gotten to where it's not memorized. They don't memorize the 30 things, but we talk about it all the time, so we're all thinking the same things. And I think it's really brought our entire organization into a focus of who we are and what we do. Highly recommend it. It's kind of, I guess it's like church. If the message from church could be told once and you have it forever, then there wouldn't be church every Sunday,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So the repetition is the secret right there. So I think it's made a lot of difference. For the first year, I would always send out an email explaining what it meant to me, to the entire team. And now I've just handed off to one of our our funeral home leader, and she's doing an insight on what she thinks out to all the entire team. So from a culture standpoint, I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And it's just so different, because I think the way the organization is set up, it's like you're not in service of revenue, you're in service of customers, and you're in service of like the long-term viability of the cemetery that needs to last forever. Right. And so I think it's a kind of total mind shift, right? Like you said, like you came from this probably high energy sales and all, and like large territory and everything. And the more you kind of I'm imagining, like the more you learned about this organization, the more interesting it probably became, because you saw just how purpose driven it was. And I'm probably saying some of the things you already said, but it's really, really cool.
This machine still creates revenue.
Yeah.
It's amazing, but it moves faster because we're all going the same direction. So there's less friction, there's less lag, there's less, HR issues or lawsuits and wrongful termination, all that stuff, because we've got it all cleaned up, it's not perfect, but it helps us be nimbler and faster in what we do.
Yeah. So awesome. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. You mentioned surfing. I want to hear about this. Like, where and when did you start surfing? And you're still surfing?
So, I started surfing in probably as soon as I could get I lived inland in Southern California, so I got my driver's license at 15 and a half, and that's when I started driving to the beach. And so that's when we started surfing, and I surfed up until I took the job here at Cypress Lawn. I do have a board here, and I also have a board down at one of our funeral homes. But the water's cold here, man.
Yeah.
It's not fun. I think I'm not sure if you can see it in the background, but my board's back there.
Yeah.
But now it's just a decoration. I've moved to electric mountain bike. I've got an electric mountain bike, and I'm about an hour from my door to the top of a mountain called Mount Diablo, and so I can get up the hill with my electric mountain bike and then ride it down. It's still exercise, but I've tried that ride without the electric juice, and it's not but what an amazing thing. And I love that bike. I love it. It is so much fun, and it's an opportunity. I tell a story in one of our sales leadership courses that I teach on how, if you're not right in the head, then don't go to work, right? If you're not 100% and you're in a leadership role, don't come to work. I don't want you here. And same thing for me. So if I think, I'm just not feeling it today, I get on that bike, I start powering up that hill. I can still answer emails and talk to people and do conference calls without video as I'm climbing up there.
Yeah.
But that's my go-to to get away and not come to work not 100%. You have to take care of yourself first, and then you can take care of everybody else.
That's awesome. What's the elevation of Diablo?
I think the climb is about 3,000 feet, something like that.
That's awesome.
It's pretty quick, 2.5 hours round trip.
Okay. And you're just riding from your front porch, or you taking the bike? Yeah. So cool. Yeah, I've got an e-bike, mountain bike as well. Really got going on. I mean, I used to be, had a mountain bike, would ride, and then your buddies want to go, and they've been out 19 times already this season, and then you go to try to join them, and you're throwing up on the side of the trail like a half a mile in. And I'm like, I can't do this anymore, because I love being up there. I love the scenery. I love the downhill. So that's where it was back COVID. I got a first mountain bike, and then I've got a second one since then. So if you're ever in Utah, I'll have to take you on some pretty awesome trails here. I've taken a few folks from out of town, and I imagine you'd handle the trails better than some of them had. We've had some interesting wrecks.
I've gotten bloody as well. I'm a little more cautious than I used to be, but it's still nothing like getting to the top of the mountain, looking out there, and still I'm always working, even if I'm playing. But it's good to do it from up there once in a while.
Yeah. So your surfboard, how long is it? Like, what size of board do you ride?
I think that is 5'11", probably 5'11", something like that.
Cool.
Short boarder. I definitely can longboard. I probably have 8 boards at home, different sizes. I've got teenagers as well as my older kids, and so right now we take our sales team once a year off into Waikiki, and so that's the fun time. It's the waves roll in, anybody can surf there, get on a longboard, and so that's a good time. But I wouldn't say I'm a surfer any longer. I miss that, but it's the Bay Area is just not the right temperature for me.
Yeah. In your heyday, would you have hit like a pipeline or like the North Shore of Oahu? Like, would you have done surf a beach like that?
Yeah, I mean, we used to go down in Mexico to Todos Santos, which is like an island has a great break right and left, and we'd sleep in the lighthouse and hire some guy to come cook for us. It was a great getaway. So those are the biggest waves. Those were probably in the 16, 20 foot.
Wow.
Size, but, no, not anymore. No, I like
That's so cool. I'd love to. I mean, I've done like I've longboarded a few times in the ocean, but we like wake surf behind boats here. But I'm going to Hawaii here in a couple of months, and I keep thinking like, man, should I try to rent a short board and see if I can do it, because get plenty of practice behind a boat. It's very different, right? But I don't know. I'm curious if I could get up on a shorter board or not. But
well, try both.
Yeah. Okay. So before we cut to, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the ICCFA. I was just also curious, like, if you got, sounds like you've got a son in the business, Zach. Anyone else? Like, did you have siblings that were involved in the funeral home or anything growing up?
I think my sister worked at our flower shop for a while, but she never wanted to be part of it. She ended up going to USC, Southern California, and now she's a school teacher. Now she never got into it. My aunts and uncles did the cemetery business for a while. I think that's it. Zach, kind of like me, he wanted to be like a sports attorney. He's 33 years old now, and I'm like, okay, that's totally fine, but I just want you to learn the funeral business and get a feel for the tone and what we do, so you'll always have a fallback position. And I think he fell in love with it. He worked for my dad's cemetery funeral home up in Oregon for a long time, did all the work just like me, and then went to work for SCI. And now he's like a Salesforce expert, kind of lead director management, revenue operations kind of guy working for corporate. And that's really the game changer in our industry. If we can figure out how to nurture not just the people that signed the contract for the at-need, but how do we keep working on the other people that think know who we are and appreciate us, but they attended a service. Like there might be 150,000 people that go through my chapels every year.
Wow.
So that's a big market, right? So the whole idea, just like every other industry, how do we capture that contact information with some sort of value, like becoming part of our newsletter or joining a tour or that sort of thing, and then just nurturing that relationship and then reaching out every once in a while. Would you like a planning guide? Would you like to pre-plan? Don't have to pre-fund. And just helping people get the message out so that it makes sense to at least find out how much things cost and what you would want, and to be able to tell your family what you want, even if you don't pay for it. That's fine. There's a lot of benefits to paying for it, but that's really the game changer. So I'm sure that the company that he works for has millions of leads, and they've got to figure out how to re-engage those and all of that. A lot of things you do too as well. I think we're all looking at that to figure out how we can connect more with the families and start generating 20-30% of our revenue from digital types of lead sources and re-engagement of or people that we have in our CRM that we haven't talked to in a year or 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a conversation earlier this week that just blew my mind. Funeral home that's generating 61% of their revenue digitally.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, what? Like, I mean, crazy to see the details of that business. And anyway, just amazing. So it's possible, right? It's out there. It's possible. Your other kids, you see them entering the business?
No, my older daughter, Kennedy, she's going to University of Michigan, and also she's a very successful hair cut and color person. She makes lots of money doing that. So she'll probably stay in that area. But every single one of my kids works for the cemetery, the funeral home. So far, my 17-year-old has worked here at Cypress Lawn. He's still an employee. Right now he's working for grocery store or something, but he can come and work any weekend if he wants. And he's already got, he's got the bug. I'm actually trying to keep him away from here because I want him to go away and go to college. I don't want him to start thinking, oh, I want to work. I'm just going to go to work. There'll be plenty of time for that. My daughter, who's 14, is already asking, hey, when can I come work at the cemetery? And even just this morning, 3 or 4 of the employees said, hey, when are the kids coming back to work? They love having them here and, working services or moving flowers around. I've had at least 3 high schoolers. We have a lot of high school kids that come to our house all the time with the rest of my kids. And so I've had 3 of them working here at the funeral home. I think 1 still works here every weekend. And, they get a different, I think that as an industry, we have to invite more younger people, even just to come from high school and do some part-time work so they can get a taste of something other than working for a pizza place or a restaurant, and do something because it's different. They always tell me this is different from what my other job. And that's the message that I think as an industry we can get out there. And if we can start with some of these younger people when they get out of college, they might think, hey, maybe I will go check out the funeral home that I work for, or hey, I live in a town. Every town has a funeral home or a cemetery. I already did this once. Maybe I can go work some services in between classes while I'm at University of Utah or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's actually been something that we've been doing around here to get things going. So, my guess is all my kids will work for the cemetery partly until they find something else. But I like to show them this.
Yeah, well, and that makes me wonder, like, where do you think the disconnect is where, because I feel the same way where it's like you get involved in the profession and it does feel so purpose-driven and the people are so good and so you want to stick around. I heard the same thing from Nadira with the ICCFA earlier as we were talking. She's been in it 29 years and she's like, I just love the people. But then at the same time, and you're like you're saying with these high school students, like this is different, feels different, they like it. Why do you think the staffing challenges are what they are when it has it's like got this purpose, at the core? Like what prevents or what causes somebody to leave, do you think?
Well, when you say they leave, why do you think they leave?
I mean, my assumption has always been probably work-life balance and maybe pay.
Yeah. So you have to continually. When I was younger, and I'd be working 7 days a week, and we stayed there till 9 o'clock because that's when the visitations were over. Our general manager, a lady named Jenny Delgado, said, "You know what, Bobby? Call me Bobby. This place will take everything you have. And 100 years from now, no one's going to remember your name. So you need to take care of you first." I still train that every single day. We have to teach balance and preach it, and at the same time keep the purpose thing going. We're here for a reason. When we're here, we're making a difference every single day. But you need to take care of yourself, otherwise it doesn't work. So I think the work-life balance thing has to work. We have to be thoughtful about that. I think the time that I came through, where I can remember sitting at my desk at 10 o'clock at night, calling people, trying to get an appointment. I was doing absolutely no good, I'm sure, because I'd already worked 14 hours. I was of no good on the phone, but that's how we worked back then. But I don't think I don't preach that at all here. I don't want anyone working super hard. I want them working effectively and getting value out of it. So I think that works. The money piece has to make sense for people if they're, and that's a struggle here in the Bay Area. I think, low income is $100,000 a year for a household in this area. That is not easy. That's not an easy gig. So just having to figure out how to make the right decisions from a business standpoint so that you can have quality I don't know. The other thing that I'm doing to try and head off what you're talking about there is I have about 30 what I call next gen people. They're all in their 30 to 40-year-old group, and I've been taking them on trainings. I took them to the Disney Institute so that they could see, and they're not managers that typically would go to these things, but they go with me. We're going to do a Ritz-Carlton tour. I do some training just on my own in the reception room with them, take them to lunch so that they can get more of a big picture of why we're here and what we do, and show them the future for them, so that it creates kind of a loyalty connection, and a focus for them, so that they don't feel like they're lost here, and then somebody from some tech company, offers them a job that's going to be sitting in a cube grinding, something different than what we do here. So the next gen thing is another thing that we're doing here, or my role as the CEO is to build my bench. More than half of our employees are older than me at Cypress Lawn, and I'm 60. So although I have a 94-year-old working for me, that's not a great thing. I want to work. I'm going to be here for 10, 15 more years, at least 10. So how do I backfill all the people that are going to leave? Is a big piece. We're finding that if I can find 20-year-olds are tough, but 30 plus, if I can get them locked into purpose and find the right role where they're excited about it, we can keep them.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, you seem to be just a great leader of people. You can just hear it, just the way you talk, and even the humility that comes across. I love it. Let's shift gears here a little bit onto the ICCFA. To the president of the ICCFA board. I joined this board with you in the spring. I don't have any clue what we're doing yet, obviously, but happy to be a part. But what would you share with just listeners here really about the ICCFA, what they can gain from the ICCFA, what it's done for you? You've been involved obviously at a high level.
Yeah. I think first, maybe I'll just share a perspective. As in my role as a president, I've been going to different state associations, and state associations definitely have their place. The thing I think of the Florida. I was just at the Florida State Association, and the people were amazing. But as I walked around, I saw everyone hugging each other, talking about kids, grandkids. They all know each other, and the takeaway for me is I don't know any of these people, which is weird for someone who's been in the industry my whole life. Like when I go to my state association, I have the same experience. Hugs, how are you? How's so-and-so? What's going on here? What happened to this thing? Did you get that deal fixed? It's kind of like a family piece. And so for me, there is definitely a place for the state association to make those connections. There may be some local vendors that only go to the state association that you want to talk to as well. There's a place for that. But from ICCFA has been something, much different. We spend a lot more time at ICCFA focused on, the legislative advocacy. I just spent. Were you with us in Washington, D.C.?
No, we had one of our guys. Yeah, Micah was there. Yeah.
So, and going and visiting with the legislators, talking to them specifically about our issues, and not just our issues, our families' issues, so that they can hear it, right? That's super powerful. And that's something that only a national organization does, and ICCFA is really good at it. And I saw it firsthand for the first time 6 months ago or whenever that was, and it was a good experience to see. I've always loved the educational piece. I'm a certified cemetery executive because I've gone to all the classes. I went to the ICCFAU. We teach at ICCFAU. That is a great educational thing that you can't get anywhere else. For sales folks, the Dead Talks is a experience that, I send 10, 15 people to Dead Talks. It's in Vegas. The rooms are cheap. The flights are cheap. But to get the learnings that you won't get anywhere else are spectacular. The opportunity to network with other leaders across the country. There may not be people that are just like you in your state. You might have a unique platform, and so you need to reach out and connect with other people. And through that, you can set up some masterminds or some meetups. So those relationships are important. In my 45 plus years, I have everybody in my phone, and I call. I ask questions. Hey, how do you do that? Hey, I heard you talking about this thing. How do you make that work? And you can get, that's how you protect your business, by having knowledge and a peer group to talk to. So super important. You can get the certification. I mentioned the CCE groups, and we're mission driven. So ICCFA is pretty neat. I think that now more than ever, it's important. Coming out of COVID, we know that what we do is important, right? We had people that through the pandemic were mad at us because they couldn't have a funeral. There would be people, there might be people that say that funerals were going to disappear once we shut down the chapels and couldn't do anything. Well, it was the opposite. We know that if we stick to the purpose of what we do, of celebrating life, helping people heal from loss, and remembering those we love, what we do makes sense to people. So now what we need to do is just make sure that we are protecting our businesses through, supporting the legal advocacy, so that the regulators don't do things that hurt our families or the way we deliver service. We have to get trained up. We can't be the same person we were yesterday as we are tomorrow, or we're going to fail. So the training and the classes, even at my age, I sit through the classes because there's going to be something there that I can steal or use and execute back at my location. So it just takes one or two things. My dad, my granddad told me the same thing. Just go and bring back one or two things, and you tell me what we're going to do. So that's that. We do have the leadership, the fall leadership program coming up. Super excited about that. We've really been putting a lot of pressure on creating an experience for people that that's not just sitting in a room taking notes. This is going to be an immersive experience where everybody that comes to the leadership program, October 21st to the 23rd in Knoxville, Tennessee, there's going to be all sorts of cool stuff that your family would enjoy anyways. But there's also going to be some hands-on experiences that when you leave there, you'll be able to immediately take some of those ideas and put them into play at your organization, which will not only generate revenue, which revenue is important, but it's going to generate connection with your families. It's going to generate higher levels of satisfaction, and they're going to go, wow, I really like this place. They did a great job for me. And then they're going to keep using you. So definitely want to encourage everybody that's listening to this to consider coming to the fall leadership program, and then we'll be in Fort Worth for our annual meeting. Love to have everybody out there as well.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thanks for sharing all that. Does the ICCFA do anything to facilitate, like you mentioned, just like mastermind groups or study groups? Do you know if that's, I'm asking, I literally don't know.
Well, they're within the organization. So, although we have most of the four big things, the trainings that we provide, the Dead Talks, the fall leadership, the annual experience, the certifications, we have live and non-live webinars. We probably teach some of those. Those are all important. But what I've found is once you become part of ICCFA, then there are a number of organizations that you can join in. We just created one. A bunch of historic cemeteries met up, and we just created a group where we are going to fly in and see one of the members of the group's cemeteries, and then we'll have dinner together. And you can share a lot of ideas and get a lot of information. I love those small group things too. So love the state programs. Totally love small group, whether it's within the industry or outside the industry, where you can brainstorm with other people, peers, CEOs, things like that. And then the ICCFA meetings are filled with all sorts of ways that we can steal ideas from other people and grow. Everything that I do in my career is things that I took from somebody else. I think I made it better and then implemented it.
That's full circle, man. You mentioned that right at the beginning. Like, yeah. That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time today. I got one more question for you. San Francisco. This is going to be totally off the, off the wall here. But San Francisco, what's the best Chinese restaurant?
I'm probably not. I have a whole team that has plenty of favorite restaurants. My deal, I'm not a big Chinese restaurant person, but if you want, I can get that for you. My deal with them is we're not going to have that at the sales kickoffs for me, just because it's not something I like. So they laugh. They go, "Oh, we going to a steak place?"
Yeah.
But I promise I take better care of the sales team than anybody else would, because I came from that. So
yeah,
we take great care of all of them, but I couldn't even recommend.
What's your favorite place? What's your Chang? So what would be your restaurant recommendation for someone visiting San Francisco?
Oh, there are so many opportunities. I mean, we like Harris Steakhouse downtown is a good place. Kincaid's in Burlingame is super. Let's see. I think that's. I'd probably give you. I'll send you a list if you like. But the city is coming back, but a lot of my favorite restaurants were shut down.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, I'll talk about some.
Well, I had to ask about Chinese because I feel like the Chinese food in San Francisco is on another level. Like I don't normally go look for Chinese food, but man, it's totally different there. Okay, so to wrap up, last question for you then is, what do you hope to see happen in the future of death care?
Well, I would say that I continue to be happily amazed that families really love what we do, appreciate what we do. Every single day I get thank you notes, surveys, everything's positive. Still to this day, I'm like, oh my God, this is still really important. I remember being a kid going, oh, nobody's going to buy caskets soon. That's not the case. We sell lots of caskets. We have a casket company. Everybody's just going to cremate and throw in the ocean. That's not the case. It's okay if they do, and we do provide that service, but people want services. So what I would love to see, and I want to see us turn the corner on a couple things. I'd like to figure out how to really become digitally relational with every person that comes into our geofence, if you will, whether into our location, whether they drove onto the cemetery, whether they came through the chapel services, whether they went to our website, wherever they visited us. How do we connect with them and then figure out how to maintain a relationship, even if it's just once a quarter, connecting till they're ready, or keep nurturing that relationship. And the other thing that I'd love to see in our industry is continuing to, with all the different ways that you can communicate on TikTok and Snapchat and all of this other stuff, how do we, if we all together as an industry decided that we wanted to get the message out about how that celebrating life, healing from loss, and remembering those we love is important, and your funeral director, your cemetery, your crematory in your area, they're the ones that do this, and they're the ones to call. So that's the main thing, not focused on caskets or, funeral music. It's about what's Curtis's life about, and how do we really celebrate that and make it meaningful to people, for the people that love him. And then if I want that, I'd like to have a larger grouping of the population know that and be aware of it. And we can do that with communication now. It used to be, the only way that people knew the funeral home was here is because they either rang our phone or one of my salespeople knocked on their door. So, but that's not how we can reach people now. There's all sorts of different ways that we can reach people, and the truth is that we, like I mentioned, we counted up. There's over 160,000 people that just sit in our chapels and visit our website and come. That they're all talking to us already. We just don't have all their contact information, or we don't have a strategy to communicate with them on a regular basis. So we're at a turning point where it's going to be we're going to have a bigger impact in the future than we do now.
That's awesome. It's great advice, and takes everybody, right? I mean, I think it does take everyone to kind of push back against some of the narratives that maybe are being told for the funeral profession. And that's a great idea. And to meet the customer where they are instead of trying to expect them to bend, but you bring the communication where they are. That's great. That's great advice and really great thoughts. So, well, I really appreciate the time, Bob. This has been awesome, inspirational, honestly. Just, again, the focus you have on families and serving them properly, and the long-term view and the culture of the company, I think, for some of the major takeaways for me. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to share this with all of us. And those that listen to PodCasket, thanks for listening to this, and feel free to subscribe to us wherever you're hearing this. And we'll wrap it up. Thank you.